Welcome to the Mark Attwood Show, Adventures in a Cosmic Suit. Don't forget, links below the description. Get on my email list at least, please. Thank you. As you know, part of my mission has been to find amazing healers around the world because, especially in the light of the last 2.5 years, lots of us have turned to what you used to call alternative healing. And I don't think it's alternative, it's just old knowledge, really. And I'm very lucky to have one of the best healers I've ever seen online. I've never met him before until about 2 minutes ago, but I'm very pleased to introduce Jerry Sargeant. Hello, Jerry.
Hey, Mark. How are you, brother?
I'm great. Yeah, I've actually had a healing workshop this morning, and I'm still buzzing from it. It's I'm kind of addicted to addicted to it. And actually, I bought a load of your meditations about a year ago, I think, and so it's really good to meet you because I have been inspired by the work that you've been doing online. And you've got quite an amazing story, haven't you, Jerry?
Yeah, it's a fruitful, exciting kind of life that I've had, really. Yeah, I mean, now we're traveling the world and training people to heal with this frequency that we call star magic. And I suppose living from the heart, helping people empower themselves, connect with source love and just be their most extraordinary versions. But yeah, I mean, it used to be completely different going back sort of 15 or so years. I was involved in a lot of criminal activity, drugs, different things. And I had a kind of a really sort of rapid sort of thrust into this spiritual world because I didn't used to believe in any of this stuff. I mean, I think it was all mumbo jumbo, to be honest with you. And, I was happy, smuggling drugs and doing other things, stealing money from banks. And then I was involved in a car crash back in 2005 with my family. And the taxi that I was traveling, I was asleep in it. My ex-wife and children were in the back, and the car ran 3 ladies over. I just woke up. There was like a loud crash, and the car's like swaying from side to side. And I remember thinking to myself, boy, we're in a bad accident. There's glass, there's wind. And then all of a sudden we came to a stop. I was expecting the car to flip or us to hit something else, but we just stopped in the middle of the road. And I looked at the taxi driver and he looked petrified. So I looked in the back. My daughter, Alaire, she was getting out from underneath the driver's seat. Laura had Josh in her arms and both their mouths are full of glass. And I looked in front of me and there was a hole in the windscreen. I thought, this is weird, There was blood dripping down my face, but I wasn't bleeding. And I got out of the car. I looked about 30 to 40 meters up the road, and there was two ladies. Like, one of them had her ankles cut off, and one of them was physically okay. I looked about another 150 meters up the road, and there was what looked like a dead body. And I didn't know it was a dead body, but it looked like a dead body. And obviously these ladies were crossing the road in the morning. The first one, she'd come through the windscreen, hit me in the face whilst I was asleep, got flipped over the car and died. Second one had her ankles cut off, and the third one was okay. So I walked up the road past the 2 ladies, the one with her ankles cut off. I was just focused on the dead body. A guy had come out from a nearby factory. And I thought, he must have called the emergency services. We're in Romania. I don't speak any English. These ladies are screaming. I was just kind of focused on the body. And I got closer and closer, got within about 10 meters. And I see this like energy, like hovering above her body, which I now know was the lady's soul. And I'm looking at it, walking closer, and it just kind of like fizzled off into the ether. And by the time I got to the body, it had gone. And I looked down, and the lady's legs are like wrapped up over her head. She's completely smashed to bits. And it was like someone had taken an old car to the scrap heap. Like, whatever this thing was inside of the body, it had no use for the body anymore. And it was like, it had just shot off, like gone on its merry way. And I remember looking up towards the heavens and saying, thank you. And I don't smoke cigarettes and I don't drink whiskey, but that was the first thing that I felt like I needed for some bizarre reason. Like, I needed a whiskey and a cigarette. Like, it was a time to celebrate. It was really bizarre. I was sad or upset or angry. It was like the universe was smacking me around the face and saying, Jerry, wake up. Your life is like, it's chaotic, like we're so much more than these physical bodies, but atoms and molecules and continuous movement in space. And so this happened, and it kind of like just shocked me into this kind of rude awakening, really. And then things just started happening. I met my first spiritual teacher who worked for Scotland Yard in the psychic division. She taught me how to remote view.
There's a psychic division in Scotland Yard. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And she taught me how to remote view, bring my light out of my body and travel, do different things. She regressed me hundreds of times into past lives. I kind of got addicted to it. You know, I went to see her once and then went into this past life, and it uncovered this kind of Saxon reality. Like, what happened is I used to have these feelings. Like, if I phoned my ex-missus, you know, she was out with the children and she didn't answer, I would go into this like blind panic. And I'd be thinking, like, someone's killed them. They're in a really bad way. Like, someone's got them. Like, it was, these feelings were so overwhelming. So when I went to see her, I told her about it. And she said, would you like to go in and find out why you're feeling like this? And I said, definitely. So she regressed me. We went into this past life, and it was a Saxon time. And I was this kind of like Saxon warrior. And we were packing up our ships. And we were sort of, you know, out on the ocean, and all of the women and the children were sort of back at the camp or the reservation. And whilst all the men were packing up our bags, this other kind of tribe came through on horseback, and they cut the soul of my ex-wife's throat in that reality, who was the same soul as my wife in this reality, and also my two children. They were the same souls in that reality too as the souls of my children in this reality. And the horses trampled on them. So like, whilst I was away, this thing happened. And so anyway, she showed me how to bring it into healing and how to heal it and stuff. So I did that. I never had those feelings ever again. So I was kind of hooked from day one. I was like, this is amazing. You know, I was kind of, can I come back again? Can I come back again? I was up there like 2 or 3 times a week, you know, and she just taught me so many things. It was amazing, you know. Yeah, and then from there, like, things just kept changing and shifting, and I had extraterrestrial encounters, and I had some time in some ancient mystery schools in meditation, and all the time I was just kind of like remembering this stuff, and eventually the universe just kept kicking me up the butt and saying, Jerry, you need to do star magic, you know, which is the business we started, which really isn't a business, it's like a mission, you know. And I fought it tooth and nail, because all my friends were criminals. They were like, Jerry's gone crazy. He's talking about angels and fairies. Like, what's happened to him? You know, so it was really hard to like sort of come out and do this to start with. But the universe just kept kicking me up the butt. And in the end, I was like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And I did. And everything just went, you know, amazingly. You know, it's just, best decision of my life, really.
Yeah, that is an amazing story. And that's the way it works, though, isn't it? I mean, I was an atheist for 25 years or so after my dad died, and I felt like I was being hit around the face with a big wet fish for quite a long time, and I just couldn't. And when, you know, even this YouTube channel, I got told to start this YouTube channel, and it sound and I, you know, I used to be embarrassed about saying it, because like I sound like a nut job, because I was literally compelled. I didn't have any choice, and yeah, and that's been one of the best decisions I've ever made. So you're all over the world. Are you based in the UK still, or where are you?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, like, whilst I'm sat here speaking to you, I'm actually in Wales. We moved to Wales about 6 months ago. It's a place that we've bought to build a healing center. Like, one of the things that happened to me, like, on this journey to kind of starting all of this stuff, was that I met these blue Lyran beings. Like, I got picked up in a spacecraft when I was in New Zealand back in 2009 and got taken to another planet. I know it sounds crazy, but
can you describe that in a bit more detail? What were you doing?
I was when I moved to New Zealand, like 2009-ish, I think it was, and at the end of that year, I met this old guy called Michael, who taught me how to meditate. Like, I'd never meditated up until this point. And he said, you know, Jerry, you got to get into meditation. And I was like, show me how to do it, you know. So he had like a copper pyramid in his garden. And I used to go around there every day. Like, we set up a health and fitness center in New Zealand. So I was at the gym in the day. I'd go to his house in the afternoon. I'd sit in this copper pyramid. And he would teach me to meditate with my eyes open. And loads of amazing things happened in there. But one day I'm sat there, And over to my right hand side, this like little space pod lands in the garden. It's the only way I can describe it. And there was a blue being inside of it. And so I brought my light out of my body, which is something that this lady had trained me to do when I was, going to see her. And I went and got in this spacecraft or this space pod. And literally it was like 2 seats, and it was lights, and it was like this crystalline kind of technology. And as soon as I got inside this like space pod, it was like a vacuum had taken my consciousness and sucked it through to somewhere. And I could see where we were. And there was like a beach and water, and there was forest. And then suddenly the rest of my light body caught up with it. It was like they placed my consciousness where we were going to go to. And then the craft and this being in me and all of the rest of our kind of essence went, and in about 4 or 5 seconds, we went through this kind of like tunnel. And then the rest of me caught up with whatever the part of me was in front. And then I got out of this space pod, and there's this beach. I walked up the beach, and there was about 200 of these blue beings. And they were about 6.5, 7 feet tall. And I knew that we were on Alpha Centauri, and I'd never heard of it. I knew that they were Lyran, and I'd never heard of Lyrans. And they had no kind of genitals. They had no clothes on. Like they all had like sort of 6-pack, 8-packs. Like they were really physically fit and tall and lean.
But was this your light body?
Yeah, this is my light body. Yeah.
So were they solid or were they light?
It's really bizarre because when I was there, everything seemed like I was really there. Like it didn't seem like I'd left my body behind. It felt like all of me was there, my whole presence. And I walked up the beach towards them, and they came and gave me a hug. Like they all just kind of came around me like a swarm of bees. And I was just like melting in tears, like the love was just a love that I've just never, ever experienced before. And it was like being home. Like I knew that I was them and they were me, and it was like my family somehow. And I just started sort of downloading information like how long their pregnancy cycle was and what kind of foods they ate. And I just sort of knew this stuff, and I didn't know how I knew it, but I kind of did. And then they stopped hugging me, and they created like a pathway. And one of them led me further up the beach and through these trees, like a forest. And we came to a building, and it was like a pyramid made of light. And they took me inside, and in this building, there was like, it was like an elder. Imagine you went to like an Indian reservation and you go and meet some kind of like Indian chief elder. It was like, it felt like an elder of their kind of like race or culture. And this old being communicated with me and asked me to kneel down on the floor. And as soon as I did, all of this orange light started pouring down into my crown. And there was this like code inside of it. And it was like geometrical, but it was moving and swirling. And it was like it was alive. And it wasn't like the solid kind of geometry that you get like in our textbooks, and what we're kind of used to is this fluid moving like geometrical code. And so I'm on the floor, and this light's pouring down inside of me. And then suddenly it stopped. And I don't know whether that was 2 minutes or 20 minutes. I just don't really know what the time was like. And then 2 of these beings came and sort of picked me up underneath my arms and like frog marched me back to the space pod. And they put me back inside, flew me back through the tunnel, and then I was back in the garden. I got out and walked back into my body, and I was like, whoa, it's crazy, and that happened. And actually, after that, nothing else happened for about 1.5 years or so. And I was waking up every day, like, what's next? What's next? What's next? I wanted like the next piece of the puzzle, but nothing actually happened. And then one day I woke up and I was like, we need to go back to England. And we'd been there about, I don't know, like a little while, and maybe 2-3 years by then. And the health and fitness center was going amazing. And I said to the missus and kids, we got to go back. And they looked at me like I was crazy, because everything was going really well. Like I was going on to some of the Good Morning TV shows and giving these kind of exercise presentations, and we had a great group of friends, and the kids were loving school. And I just said, we have to go back. And I was badgering them for weeks. And in the end, they said, okay, Dad's just not going to shut up. So let's kind of like, we'll go back and humor him. So we went back to England. When we got back to England, that's when things really went into overdrive for me. I was out running on a Sunday morning, and I look up and I see some fairies around a tree. And I'm just stood there in the middle of the street. I'm like, just kind of like blown away that I'm actually seeing them like with my eyes, not in my mind's eye, but they were really there. And then an angel comes down, and the angel says, "My name's Archangel Gabriel." I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "You need to write a book." And I said, "What's it called?" He said, "It's called Into the Light. It's about your life story." I was like, "Okay." So I just turned around, I legged it home, opened up my laptop, started writing, and I wrote this book in about 4 weeks, and I published it. But then I realized it was about the channeling and the frequency that was coming through me whilst I was writing the book, because everything just opened up. I started seeing all of the geometrical code that got downloaded when I was on Alpha Centauri. And, I was saying to my guides, what am I supposed to do? That they were saying, meditate more, meditate more. So I was getting up every day with my son at like 5 a.m. and before we went to school. And we were going to these ancient mystery schools underneath the pyramids in Egypt. And we go down these tunnels in our meditation. We go through this like same passageway into this door. And there'd be like, when you're like 5 years old at school and you get those little kind of wooden desks, they were like those. And I was sat at one of those and I'm looking around and there's all these other human beings in there. And there's a guy at the front of the room getting out these ancient scrolls and showing us codes. And these codes were the same codes that got downloaded in the orange light and the same codes that I was seeing in the empty space. And we went every day for 9 months and sat there for 2 hours. And they were showing us how to use these codes. And then people just started coming into my life that needed healing. And I was like, let me just see if this stuff works, And I was trying it and it was working. And I kept trying it. And I thought to myself, maybe we could turn this into some kind of business and start, helping people and earning money and doing something really good. And something else had happened, like whilst all this was going on. When we moved back to England, I actually got arrested at the passport office for conspiracy to defraud the Bank of Scotland and holding a false passport from back in 2007. So I went through this kind of crazy court case, which really opened me up to a lot of corruption and what was really happening in society and how things were controlled. And I went to see a friend of mine, and I said, listen, I'm in trouble. I don't know how to get out of it. And he was a lawyer that used to practice law, and then he found out the kind of corruption in the legal system. So he turned to smuggling drugs, and he actually got caught with a load of cocaine, and he was looking at like 15, 20 years in prison, and he represented himself in court and got off just using the Bible. So he said to me, Jerry, you haven't actually committed a crime. He said, this money that they're saying that, you defrauded from the Bank of Scotland, it was through mortgage fraud. And he showed me that when you borrow money from the bank, like they don't actually lend you any money. And he gave me all this documentation and he gave me a big pile of paperwork, and it had had 2.7 billion pounds worth of property in it. And something like, I don't know, however many thousands of properties. And it was from 2007. And a load of properties that were in there that we used to get this mortgage money were in there. And he said, listen, I can prove to you that, you don't owe the money. Anyway, the next day it went missing out of my emails. So I went to the gym, I come out of the gym and I got pulled over by an unmarked police car, an armed police car. They pulled me out of the car at gunpoint and were threatening me because I'd had this document. Yeah, it was crazy. They went to my mum and dad's house the same day, and my dad was suffering from prostate cancer, and they bullied them. They were really mean to them. They were just trying to sort of put the frighteners on me. So I knew that whatever this guy had given me was really good. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come for me like that. So I said to my friend, I need another copy of it. So I got another copy of it, and I went down to the Metropolitan Police in London, and I gave it to them. And they dropped the charges on the conspiracy, but they didn't drop the charges on holding the false passport. So I had to go to court, and I was looking at, a substantial sort of prison sentence. So I said to my guides and stuff in the universe, I was like, listen, I promise you with my heart and my soul, if you get me off of this, I'm going to put everything into star magic and I will not hold back. So I went to court on the day that I had to go, and I'm stood in the dock. They put me in this glass dock, and the judge comes out with his kind of two accomplices, and the one to my left, to his right, was a woman, and she looked at me and winked, and I saw wings on her back, and I was like, no way. I said, and I had all these chills go through my body, and something told me I'm going to get off this, but I was a little bit still dubious. Anyway, the prosecution gave their side of the story and they made me out to look really bad. Then my judge, she gave her side of the story. They went out and deliberated, came back in 20, 30 minutes later. She winked at me again. And I was like, oh my God, this is real. I'm going to get off this. And the judge stood up and he said, we can see you're a changed man, Mr. Sargeant. We're going to give you an £80 court cost and a 1-year conditional discharge. You're free to go. And I was like, no way, star magic, you know. So that was it. I walked out of the dock. The police officer came up to me and she said, you should have been locked up today, Mr. Sargeant. Anyway, I smiled and walked off, and that was it. Then I knew that I had to do this. So what happened is that I went to a local mind, body, spirit festival. I made some kind of little flyers, and it wasn't actually star magic then. I just called it energy healing. And I took my book into the light and I went along. And I went with my daughter, actually. I gave a little talk on my life story and about the book. And I had these flyers and a little stand. And I was saying to people, listen, if you put your name down on the list, at the end of the weekend, I'm going to draw out 3 names and give those three people a free healing. Anyway, about 70 or 80 people put their name down, and I phoned every single one of them and told them they'd won, just so I could practice. So I had like 70 or 80 people to practice on. So I phoned them all up, practice, got some great results, and it was going really well. I then phoned them back up and said, please, can I come to your house, have a cup of tea and get a testimonial? So I had some kind of like testimonials for the website, and they said, no problem. So I had the testimonials, got someone to build the website, and that's where Star Magic was born, you know?
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then shortly afterwards, I'm meditating on a hill near where I live. And this blue being, his name's Derek, he came and saw me again, the one that took me in the spaceship to Alpha Centauri. And they've kind of been helping me and guiding me ever since, to be honest with you. And pretty much a lot of the decisions that I make are because of them. And I've just sort of like, I suppose, be like a bit of a puppet in a way, just kind of like pulling the strings. And I'm just kind of sort of acting out this mission that I'm supposed to act out. But he came and saw me again and said, you know, you need to build healing centers. The whole town that I was looking at, meditating over the top of Gloucestershire, it just disappeared. And I saw all these kind of like orange lights. There were 13 of them. And he said, they're healing centers, you've got to build them. And I was like, well, if I build them, who's going to run them? He said, you need to train people. So again, I kind of ran home and I designed this training program and I put it up online for the next February. And this was 2017. And people just came from everywhere, from like, I don't know, from Egypt and America and Australia and all over Europe and England. And I was stood at the front of the classroom on the first day, like, what are you all doing here? Like, I just couldn't believe it myself, like, you know. And so, yeah, that was it. And it's just kind of sort of escalated and grown from there. Yeah.
What an amazing story. Are you making a movie of this?
It would be a good movie.
It would.
Yeah, it would be a good movie. A few people have said.
Yeah. You got to make a movie about that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
But we're still in the middle of it, aren't we?
Absolutely.
You know, this is what I've been. You know, when this thing happened 2.5 years ago, I thought I knew it was coming. Did you know it was coming?
I had lots of signs. At the time, I didn't. At the time, I was too oblivious to them. You know, I kind of, looking back now, all the way back to when I was 5, 6 years old, I now see all of the signs.
Yeah.
You know, but at the moment, I was too engrossed in my kind of ego, and I, you know, wanted all that kind of materialistic stuff, and I wasn't present enough to see the signs. But yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how that gets bashed out of you, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was a cocky pilot 30 years ago, and all I was interested in was airplanes, booze, and girls, and that carried on for quite a long time. And it does make me like, it's just such, you know, the things you've talked about. I've been through pretty much a lot of those things as well. Otherwise, I'd be thinking he sounds nuts. You know, 10 years ago, I'd probably thought you were nuts. But I've been through the same sort of stuff. And it's very empowering to talk about this stuff. So I thank you for sharing it, because a lot of people, you know, when I first started all this, talking out like this, I didn't know what I was going to talk about. And then it just all flowed out. And I started talking about demonic possession and UFOs and this kind of stuff, the kind of things everybody used to laugh at me for. And then suddenly I get all these emails from people from all over the world saying, yeah, the same thing happened to me.
Yeah.
it's incredible, isn't it? And this whole idea of soul families and stuff like that, as you said, going back, meeting the Lyrans and feeling like you were home and you had all this knowledge and you were being assisted and then pushed down a certain path because you have the skills that they know that are necessary to complete the mission.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, whenever we're training people with the healing and stuff, we always say to people, we're here to help you remember.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can really teach you. And all of this stuff that I know, that everybody knows, like it's in all of us. Like we're all just super connected with one consciousness.
Yeah.
And we're literally triggering each other in different ways to help each other just remember that truth and bring that kind of divine wisdom to the surface. So we've got the tools and the skills and the knowledge and all of this ancient stuff to carry us, through what we're going through now as a species. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so divine,
Yeah, I'm getting the truth bumps as you said that. So what is the mission? What is Star Magic's mission? I know you've got to build these healing centers. Is this the first one in Wales that you're talking about?
Well, we've brought a few different sites. We've brought something in Wales. We've got Madeira on an island near Portugal, and we've brought something in Romania. Like it's really strange. Like, I mean, my ex-wife is Romanian. The car crash happened in Romania. Like Romania just keeps drawing me in. Like it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And we've actually started the first one. So we got 15 acres out in Romania, and we're literally in the process of just finishing all of the design, all the 3D modeling, like all of the stuff to kind of prepare it. And we're looking to break ground in 2024. As soon as the snow goes at the sort of like the end of the 2023 winter. It's about a year to a year and a half's build. And we're building this kind of like geometrical center. We've got some incredible architects that have designed everything out of this. It's really, again, it's not bizarre, it's perfect, but it kind of seems bizarre. But I got introduced to these architects who create buildings out of the same frequency that we do our healing with.
Yeah.
And I looked at these guys' drawings and I was like, this is unreal. Like I said to the guy, like, where are you getting this information from? He said, I'm just downloading it. It's just coming through. I can see it. I can see these buildings on other planets, and I'm here to bring it to Earth. I said, the frequency of these structures is just what we're using through our healing. And so we kind of hit it off and got together. And over the last sort of 18 months, have been designing and redesigning and getting these buildings together. So like the main kind of like healing training room is a multi-dimensional Merkaba field, which is like 10 tetrahedrons. It's just,
wow.
Yeah. So we're putting all that together at the moment. And we've got a legal team like designing a legacy membership program. So what we're going to do is we're going to offer the center to people. They could say, for example, spend 25,000 euros, and then for 1 week, for eternity, they get to stay in that healing center. And when they pass back to spirit, they pass it on to their children and their children's children. So every time they come for a week, they can come to a retreat, drink ayahuasca, come to a training, use the gym, the sauna, the steam room, the horse healing. Like it's going to be sort of like a full Monty place with everything going. And so we're designing this legacy program so people can come and buy certain weeks. And then every week they come, and it's something that humanity can kind of create and build together, and it's a legacy for their family forever to be a part of. It's kind of, instead of going and getting life insurance, so many people, they spend so much money on life insurance. If you've got the opportunity to come to a healing center and keep recalibrated and retuned every year, you don't need anything else.
No, I'm coming.
Yeah,
it's funny because when everything kicked off a couple of years ago, I've met some amazing people on this whole journey, and there's been a lot of people that were talking about coming into Humanitarian Funds, which I'll tell you this because you'll find this funny. I was following this story about the Chinese bonds, trillions of bonds. I don't know if you've heard about these. They were supposed to be cashed in for a new financial system. I was following this story 10 years ago, and I moved to Marrakesh, and I moved next door to the Dragon family's broker.
Wow.
And I was telling him the story about these bonds, and he listened to me for 20 minutes, and he went, "You are joking. I am their broker." And I went, "What?" I've moved in there. Of all the places in the world, moved in next door to him. And he was telling me about all these humanitarian projects and this money being released. And there was a lot of people talking about, they all had the same vision of healing centers. And I want to build a healing center. And I even had a vision of the and I was thinking, sacred geometry, blah, blah, blah. But you're actually doing it.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
We want to build 13 centers in different places around the world. And they're all on on the ley lines on very specific grid points. Like the one in Romania, there's a portal on the land, and we got some guys to fly drones over, doing some kind of like heat-seeking technology, finding the portals. We got a number of different kind of psychics to tune in, and everyone was coming up with the same results. And we found where this kind of major grid point was on the land, and there's a portal. And when you go there and you're just sort of just meditating in the sticks and in the woods, you can hear the beings coming through, walking around. And what they're doing is they're actually moving the portal structure into the center of the land, positioning it so the energy is going to be spot on for the center, so that the portal will be right in the center of the multi-dimensional Merkaba training facility, so that when you're inside of it and you're training, the energy is just going to flow. And each one of the centers is going to be connected through the grid points. And the idea is, what I was told by the Lyrians is that these healing centers, they're going to create, in a way, like another matrix, but a more positive matrix, like this kind of high frequency, mesh around the planet and within the planetary structure that's just going to amplify consciousness at a very fast rate. And I mean, for me, I'm just really excited about getting that done. But as well as this, for me, what really drives me is the children. I see all these amazing children come into Earth, and they're so powerful. They got all this new knowledge. And I mean, in England, some children get taken out of schools, and they're taken off to these different places where they're there for 5, 6, 7 years. They get sent back to their parents, addicted to drugs, full of entities that are demonizing them left, right, and center, because these kids showed so much potential. They've had to screw them up a little bit because they don't fit into society. So I want to be able to have a place for these children, so they can come and they can just be creative, and they can show us how to run this planet. They can show us how to biolocate, how to use telekinesis effortlessly, and all of these skills that are inside all of us that we've just simply forgotten. And I think these kids are the gateway to, rebirthing a new humanity. And I feel these centers will be the foundation and the playground and the platform for the kids to go in and show us what they can do, and for us to remember more.
You'll have to change your name to Professor X. Have you got any? I'm just going to show everybody your Star Magic healing site. There it is. So this is the shop front for the business, right?
Yeah.
And can you explain how people engage with the healing first, and then maybe the practitioner? There's a lot of people that watch my show that are healers already that would be interested in that, I'd think.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a number of different kind of avenues, I suppose, into engaging with us. The number one, we've got Infinity, which is like a membership. So you pay £27 a month, and you get access to hundreds of guided meditations, light language transmissions, light codes, cosmic yoga videos. There's nutrition, there's masterclasses every month. There's a private Telegram group. We get together in a number of different ways to kind of help each other and support each other. Like every Monday, we do a frequency spa online. Every Wednesday, a weekly meditation. Every other Sunday, we do something called Fearless Focus, where we set challenges. So it's kind of like a community. And together, we just use all of the tools just to raise our frequency, connect, support each other, and, just live a really healthy lifestyle. That's one way of engaging. Another way is to book a private healing, which you can do.
Do you get time to still do these, Jerry? You sound very busy.
Yeah, I mean, what I do now is I do a certain amount of healings a week. I did actually stop for about 18 months And I found that I was getting a little bit rusty. Like I was just a little bit less sharp. And so I said, you know, I need to keep doing them. So like I do like sort of 10 healings a week now, just to sort of, you know, keep tapped in. And the other time we're doing group healings, which is something that is really taken off for us. So we're doing one in Liverpool this weekend. We get 55 people in a room in a circle for 6 hours. We bring the group frequency together, and we just move around the room and work on everybody over and over and over. And the changes that take place are just crazy. I mean, things like brain tumors and eyesight and all different things, they're just disappearing, you know, and it's wild.
When's the information on the group healings?
So the group healing, if you go along to events,
yeah,
and then you go down to group healing experiences, all the group healings are there. So we've got Liverpool this weekend, we've got Lebanon at the end of the month, and then we've got 2 group healings in LA, and then we're back in London in April, then we're back in Miami and Colorado in April. And then it's not on the website yet, but we're doing an American tour in July and August. We're going to 7 different states and doing 2 healings in each one, so 14 in total over the course of 7 weeks. So we'll be doing Miami, Seattle, New York, Sedona, LA again, Atlanta. Yeah, a few different places. It's going to be pretty cool.
I might come to this one in London.
Yeah, it'd be great to see you, my friends. Yeah.
This is great stuff.
Yeah, wow. And then the other thing that we do, which is I suppose really is like our core business, and that's the training, you know, because we're training people to man these healing centers once they're up and running. I mean, we've trained a few thousand people now in like 45 countries, and we've got 4 levels of training. So the first level is facilitated training, level 1, where we basically show people how to heal themselves and groups of people and also other people. And then the level 2 training, we call the frequency upgrade. It's more about the Stargates. It's about ley lines, grid work. It's about how to use the crystalline architecture of the planet, how to tap your energy field into it, how to sort of optimize your frequency, ready for multi-dimensional Stargate travel, which is really what we're working towards through Ascension. And then the level 3 training is through the Stargate, which is where we show people how to take large groups of people on deep frequency encoded meditation journeys. So you might have 100 people that you take through portals, different planets, and they have downloads and they go to healing chambers. And we show people how to do that kind of safely and effectively. And then the 4th level of the training is actually going out and doing your own training. You do 50% of the training. I do 50%. Once you've done that, you're on your own. You're out there, you know, doing your own training. So that's what we're working towards, getting everybody up to speed. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. So what's it been like the last, I know you've been really busy. I mean, healing, as I said at the beginning, a lot of people are spiritually awakening. A lot of people have focused on their health and their lifestyle. I mean, I've called this whole period spiritual quarantine. It's been an amazing period of time for the human race. It's the best time ever to be alive, isn't it? And we now know who everybody is for the first time in history.
Yeah.
Which is incredible, because it's been quite surprising for a lot of people, hasn't it?
I think most of all, like, we know who we are ourselves. And I think, you know, we've never really figured that out, but being put into that kind of space of, you know, isolation in a way, you're forced, aren't you, to look at things differently, and you're forced to sit still, you're forced to go within. And when you go within, you know, all of the answers are there, you know, to all of your questions. And, you know, if you are brave enough to take that deep dive journey of the heart, then you're going to start to unlock and unleash like that divine wisdom that lies inside every single cell of your body. And I think that going through this process has helped so many people do that. And there has been like an explosion of consciousness. I mean, a lot of people struggled through these last couple of years. I mean, our business went through the roof. We just started doing things online, which was great for the time period, but now we're back out moving around again and connecting with people and hugging people and eating with people. It's so much better. But at the time, it was perfect. You know, we got to connect with so many more people. We dropped all of our prices because we didn't have to pay for accommodation and chefs and all of this, you know, training halls that we needed to rent to train people in. So it meant it was more accessible for a lot more people. And yeah, we just engaged with so many more people, and it was amazing. You know, it's been a beautiful experience. I mean, for me personally, I mean, I still traveled around. I didn't ever put a mask on or bow down to any of these kind of rules and regulations. I just kind of continued as I was doing. The only thing for me that was a bit of a nightmare was not going to the gym, you know, because I'm a bit of a gym junkie. So yeah, not having the gyms open, but I got some equipment and trained at home and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. So the explosion in consciousness has led to the explosion in people claiming sovereignty over their health, their wealth, their every aspect of their life. And that's, you know, although it has, you know, I found it quite difficult to be, how do I put this? I've been very positive throughout the whole thing because I'm an apocalyptimist, right? I've always been massively optimistic despite tons of shit happening to me in my life. I know where we're going. It feels really amazing. And I'm very excited to get there. And I've just sort of tried to help people along the way. And inadvertently, all this healing stuff started coming up. And I've met some just incredible healers. And I've started healing people myself. I've got Rife machines here. I've got Tesla machines. I've got a pyramid over there. I'm surrounded by lasers and all this because I love the gadget side to it as well. But the spiritual side to it is the thing that's really been something that people just can't ignore anymore because it's just too loud. You know, I'm seeing spaceships and dragons and fairies, and I'm having downloads and all sorts of spiritual experiences that you just can't not talk about because they're right there. You know,
Absolutely.
so that's the really exciting thing about this time, and I'm absolutely loving this journey to just expanding into it because consciousness just never stops evolving, does it? So everybody's always looking for the end point, but there is no end point. It's just we're now going on this accelerated path. And do you believe that this is the first time of ascension where we are going to remain in these bodies in this process?
You know what? This is a beautiful question, man. I mean, it's a favorite topic, I suppose. The short answer is yes. It's definitely on the cards. What I feel is that we have to raise our energy levels to a certain frequency, and we've got to like re-instruct our gene code, you know, our DNA to sort of come back online a little bit more for us to be able to do that. You know, I mean, we got kind of down-regulated many years ago as a human species, you know, through genetic manipulation and various species trying to control us. And, you know, we went back to that kind of double helix, that two-strand template. But we are naturally like more evolved 12 strands angelic human beings. And you know, even we're supposed to have 6 digits on our hands and feet, and we're supposed to be much taller, and our brains are supposed to be bigger. And, you know, I feel that now with, you know, a lot of us are operating at sort of 4-strand, 3-strand, some people 5-strand, maybe some people higher. And we're slowly working our way back up, activating that genetic template. And I'll tell you something that was really fascinating for me a few years ago, because I was finding out this information. And you know, when you start to find out things and you talk about things, more and more stuff comes. And I wanted some proof, you know. I was like, you know, come on. I know that we're these like incredible beings with all of this potential. You know, I know that we're supposed to be so much bigger, and I really wanted some proof. I was putting it out to the universe, and one day, this young guy, he's about 20, 21 years old. He was from South America. He got in contact with us, and he emailed in and he said, you know, I woke up this morning, and he said, my brain has stayed the same, and my skull has grown. He said, when I put my head down to the side, my brain falls inside my head. He said, it's really painful. And he said, if I run, I can't do it. It's just so sore, like my brain is hitting my skull. He said, please help me. And I said, you know, send me a photo, which is what we always do. We get a photo so we can look into their eyes and all this. And I I realized that he'd been meditating and he downloaded some extraterrestrial light codes and it triggered his DNA. And his skull had gone to its normal size.
Wow.
So I met him on Skype. This is going back a few years. And we're sat there and he said, Jerry, please help me shrink my skull. I said, brother, why don't you grow your brain?
Yeah, that's what I'd say. Yeah.
I was like, come on, man.
Fill the space.
Yeah, I didn't know how we'd help him grow his brain, but I didn't know how we'd help him shrink his skull. So I thought, let's at least try and help him grow his brain and like get it to its normal size. And he looked at me, he's like, Jerry, I can't. Look at me. Every time I'm walking down the street, I look stupid. I've got this big head on my shoulders. And I tried a couple of times to persuade him, but he wasn't having any of it. So we went into this healing session and I took him underneath the pyramids, these healing chambers, and ran him through this kind of futuristic MRI machine. And his skull went and kind of shrunk back down again. And I wish I was recording it, but I didn't think that was even going to happen, like, because, you just don't know, do you? But yeah, it shrunk back down again. And that made me realize. And since then, we've had people that will write in and say, my feet have just gone from size 6 to size 9, like overnight. Like this has happened and that's happened. Like features are just growing where they're downloading codes, So it's definitely happening. It's happening right now. I'm a bit like you, though. I'm impatient. I want it all to come.
No, yeah. I'm trying to slow myself down with it.
Yeah.
But I'm noticing so many strange things. That, I mean, I was walking through the streets of Belfast the other day with like, how many kids? 3 kids. I have to count because I've got 5 and I can't remember how many I've got with me. And one of my sons runs into me while I'm looking at the maps on the phone like this, and my phone goes up in the air. And I turn to him to go, what did you run into me for? But while I'm talking to him, I catch the phone when I'm not looking at it. Yeah. And I'm like, how did that happen? How did I do that? And there was, I've told this story on the channel before, but I'll just tell you quickly. I was driving down from Essaouira in Morocco. It was late at night, 11 o'clock. There were 3 of us in the car through the hills, windy roads, no lights. And I go around the corner and there's 15 dogs in the road. There's no way I'm going to stop in time. There's no way I'm going to get through them, and then suddenly I'm through the other side of the dogs, and everybody in the car, the people in the car going, how did you do that? I said, I have no idea. and there's these little moments, there's loads of them, I don't want to bore you with them, but it's just, you can't ignore these things, and really people should be making notes of these things, because I'm coming across a lot of people that are experiencing these things. And when I was on tour in America recently, I said to people, is anybody else experiencing truth vibrations, psychic abilities going through the roof, telekinesis? And everybody was putting their hand up.
Yeah.
So, this upgrade, I agree with you 100%. This upgrade is happening in real time, but time is, in and of itself, is changing as far
as time is so bizarre at the moment.
It's really weird.
Like everything's completely really slow and it's so fast. It's like, it doesn't really exist. I think time is really what your perception of time is, depending on where you're at, if you're breathing deeply and you're nice and calm, time's just beautiful. If you're racing around like a blue ass fly, then time's doing the same thing for you. It's like, it's representing how you're feeling, which is kind of crazy, to think that time can represent actually how you're feeling as a human being.
Yeah, it is extraordinary. I've got a question for you. Have you experienced much opposition or resistance to what you've been doing in the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, 2017, I think it was, I got arrested for healing people with cancer. Yeah.
So got arrested for healing people?
Yeah, there was a lady that I was working on in India, and I did 3 healing sessions on her. She had some fibroids in her uterus and a tumor. And anyway, I did the 3 healing sessions and they disappeared. So she made a little video and she was like, these are my doctor's reports. And after Jerry gave me the healings, look, here they are again, and they're not there anymore. She said, I'm so grateful. So I put the video on YouTube, and the title of the healing of the video was Alternative Cancer Treatment. And there's this thing called the Cancer Act 1939, which means you can't say the word cancer with heal or treat or a cure. And I didn't know anything about this. So anyway, I get a knock at the door, boom, Mr. Jerry Sargeant, we're arresting you, blah, blah, blah. So I went through, it was about a year or so of this kind of court case. And I was actually in New York at the Conscious Life Expo. I was given a talk. I was with my two children. I split up with my wife exactly when Star Magic started. You know, like she couldn't kind of sort of handle what was happening, and she kind of went a separate way. So the kids stayed with me. And so I took them out of school and they just traveled with me doing Star Magic. So we're at the Conscious Life Expo in New York. We gave this talk and we flew back to London, and we landed at 5 a.m. I had to be at court at 9 o'clock, ready for this court hearing. So I took the children with me, and they were under 16 at the time, so they had to wait outside. I've gone into the courtroom. I had loads of letters, about 100 letters of people that I'd facilitated the healing of for different diseases, and loads of them were cancer. Gave them to the judge. She read through them, all of this sort of stuff. And she turned around to me and she said, "There's nothing more than I would love to lock you up and throw away the key, Mr. Sargeant." She said, "But my hands are tied because you've got 2 minors outside and no one to look after them." That was the only reason she didn't put me in prison. Yeah. So she gave me a £6,000 court fine and said, "On your way."
But she read all those things and still said she wouldn't lock you up.
Absolutely crazy. I know.
What is wrong with these people?
I know. Bizarre.
Who do you think they are, Jerry?
Sorry?
Who do you think they are? You know, all the people like the judges and the doctors and the police and people like that who facilitated all of this madness.
Yeah.
Are they NPCs? Are they possessed by entities? Are they Satanists? What are they?
I think you got different levels, you know, brother. So like some of these people are human beings, and their consciousness has been overridden, and they're kind of like, you know, like drones, really, like puppets. They're just being like fully controlled, and their body is like an empty vessel that has this other consciousness inside of it that is kind of controlled, like a remote control car type thing. And so they don't really know. There are other ones that are fully aware and are actual beings from other planets themselves, just shapeshifted into human form. And, you know, if you go kind of like up and above that, then you've got like other beings from other planets that are controlling certain families, that are controlling the drones down on the front line. You know, some of these MPs and prime ministers and, you know, people, secretaries of state, whatever they are, people that are making the decisions and pressing buttons and, you know, having final says and, you know, that sort of thing, bringing out orders from the court. That, you know, these kind of people, yeah, they're just drones and puppets. But at the top, I mean, if you kind of like go back through human history and then you go back through kind of extraterrestrial history and you go all the way back up through the chain, like billions of years, you've got like the Anunnaki, you've got like the draconian beings, and then you've got the crystalline beings. So these ultimately, these 3 kind of subsets of species. Yeah. Two of them, the draconians and the Anunnaki, they're like the Protestants and the Catholics, like the Reds and the Blues. Like still, all the way back then is infiltrated down into this kind of time-space period now. So it's 2 galactic races warring with each other, but for the control of the same dominion. So that's why when you vote for, you know, Protestant or Catholic, or you vote for Democrat or Republican, you're voting for the same people behind, you know, at the top of the chain. You can't win, you know.
So where do you think we're at with this war? Who do you think is winning? Where are we going? Obviously, you're optimistic about the future. Otherwise, you wouldn't be building these places because you're part of the future. But just interested in your view.
Oh, I'm optimistic like you, brother. I mean, for me, I'm like, there's never a moment when I'm concerned about this stuff. Again, like there's different levels to this, and I think, you know, whilst we're here on Earth, my mission is to build these healing centers so we can expand consciousness, so people can remember the truth and they can step into their divinity and access this divine knowledge and their power, okay, and take responsibility for themselves. Now, from there, that's the first stepping stone. What we have to do after that is to remember like the sacred mathematics of the universe, which is how to take these physical vessels through the Stargate systems so we can get out of this 15th dimensional time matrix. Because, you know, our galaxy is in this time matrix, and this game of corruption runs beyond the galaxy. It's throughout the kind of the whole universal structure, this 15th dimensional time matrix with, you know, 12 Stargate systems, and which then leads to the God worlds and out of this place. And what we have to do is to remember how to get out of this and leave. So like where we're at the moment is you've got consciousness exploding, and a lot of people coming in to this kind of place where we're taking responsibility and knowing that something isn't right, you know, and then doing the inner work, expanding our own consciousness, and then starting to live from the heart and realizing that all of this external, you know, materialistic stuff is just BS, and we need to pull back from that and get out into nature and reconnect with the truth. And it kind of comes back to something I wanted to touch upon, what you said earlier, to do with what's happened over the last 2 years. What I've noticed is a lot of people are moving out of the city. Because they realize they don't have to be in the city in this kind of rat race anymore, and they go into the country. They're connecting with the trees and fresh air, and there's less 5G around. That is helping raise consciousness because people are coming back to their grassroots. And so we're kind of in this process where people are finding their way back home to their hearts. And once they find their way back home to the heart, they live from this present state of awareness. And then when that happens, their mind becomes a lot clearer. And when the mind becomes a lot clearer, people can then access the truth because it's not clogged up with all the bullshit that, you know, they've been kind of plugged into. So from there, they start to remember the divine knowledge, the sacred mathematics about how to activate their DNA, how to raise their kundalini, how to protect that kind of God seed atom, which is in the medulla, up in the brain, like the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, releasing the milk and the honey, which flows down through the spinal column and down into the sacred plexus, you know, where the Christ is reborn. Which, you know, that kundalini energy rising back up through the central column, back up into the pineal gland, moving into the right brain, the female brain, the third door in Solomon's temple, and accessing all of that, all of those multidimensional faculties through the pineal gland, through the hypothalamus, through the right brain, so that we can become Christ-like again, you know, and we can resurrect ourselves. It's not about resurrecting some kind of mythical being from the Bible. It's about us being resurrected. And so as more of us become resurrected and remember all of this divine truth, we remember the sacred mathematics, our DNA template gets activated, and then on numbers, we kind of come together and we'll start to leave this time-based matrix. You know, we're all building these kind of ascension temples. If you go back to the Egyptians, to the Atlanteans, to the Mayans, they all built ascension temples. These healing centers that we're building now, they're ascension temples. You know, sacred geometrical ascension temples running the same kind of mathematics that they all knew was true, that all got shut down and covered up. And we're just bringing it back online. And I truly feel that everything is just completely in alignment and perfect. And like the war's already won. Like for me, there is no war anymore. Like, to be honest with you, like going back 10 years ago, you know, when I was really getting into all of this stuff and discovering it, I mean, the war was everywhere. Everywhere I turned, there was war because I was so focused on it. Now I'm just living from the heart and doing what I'm doing and focused on the mission that we're on, speaking to amazing souls like yourself. And there's no war. Like it's the war is something that you help co-create. And that's why if you stop watching the TV and you stop listening to the news and you put down your newspapers and your magazines and you go into your heart, the war just dissipates. But whilst you're external, focused on this materialistic bullshit world, there's war everywhere. So it's about perception. You've got a choice. Do I want to engage in the war or engage where there's no war? And by engaging where there's no war, the war just ceases to exist. So we help perpetuate and co-create that war by our focus, by putting our energy into where our focus is going towards. And that's why they want to keep us locked into this kind of, you know, matrix, you know, whatever we want to call it, you know. But we have the choice and the power to step away from that by simply changing our focus.
I mean, it's taken people a while to get to that point of realization, and it is a small, but it's definitely a growing number of people. I mean, your business exploding, this channel being busy, you know, there's a lot of people looking for this, and it is all about empowerment and just because getting people to understand that they have the power is the biggest part of this job, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's because they really have got the power, but they just the MK Ultra is so powerful that it takes ages to stick it. Now I know times are constructs and it's changing, but what kind of timescales do you think we have to achieve this ascension?
Well, I mean, this is a big question. I truly feel that we have less than 200 years. Yeah, as a human species. Now, this again, it depends on the timeline, okay? Because if you go back to 2012, people say, "Oh, the end of the Mayan calendar" and all this sort of stuff. I mean, it wasn't the end of the Mayan calendar. It was supposed to be the end of the world. I mean, they tried to completely eradicate our planet and blow it up by corrupting the rod and the staff. The rod and the staff is like a vertical and horizontal access point through the planet Earth. We've also got them running through our Merkaba fields in our body, and they were busted on planet Earth. And the planet was supposed to spin out of control, and all life form was supposed to disappear, and the planet was supposed to explode so they could harness a lot of quantum energy. But that was stopped. But it can only be stopped for a certain period of time on one timeline. Okay, it's held in place by very powerful beings that, from the God worlds beyond this 15th dimensional time matrix, because they know how important Earth is. I mean, it's the heart chakra of our galaxy, and it's a massive living library because of its mineral and its crystal content. So it's a very important kind of place. And it's also got a number of different Stargate systems, universal, galactic, planetary Stargate systems. And so it's kind of important to the kind of organism as a whole. So the planet is being held in place so that we as a species can remember all of what we need to remember to change our mathematical structure, our DNA template, and get through these Stargates and out of here. Now, that's kind of one timeline. But I also feel there's another timeline that's playing out alongside of it where the planetary structure could be mended, the rod and the staff, and I think there are beings working on it right now, trying to make that happen. So I don't want to take the chance and think, well, you know what, they might sort it out. What I'd rather do is say, you know what, let's knuckle down, let's get our shit sorted, let's remember this stuff, and let's work out how to do this now, just in case, I don't want to leave it to chance. So for me, what I want to be able to do in this lifetime, me as Jerry Sargeant in this physical body, I want to take this physical body with me. And I think we need to be at least a kind of 6-7 strand activated template. I mean, in my book, Into the Light, I wrote that I was going to live till I was 250 years. And I didn't know why I wrote that. I just felt it. So I wrote it in the book. But I truly feel that. And I think all of the time, we're remembering how to preserve ourselves, because it's our blood that becomes toxic and actually ages us. And also the telomeres in our cells, the cellular degeneration is taking place. But this milk and honey that runs down the spine is cleaning out our blood. As that Christ rises back up within us, it changes the structure of the blood, and it becomes completely oxygenated and healthy. And that is the key to eternal life. So as more of us remember this information and we start to do the breathing techniques and the meditation techniques and the grounding techniques, which are all completely free, by the way, like none of this stuff costs money. Like this is just stuff that we have to engage in. So when each one of us remembers how to do this, we're going to become eternal beings again. And then we buy ourselves a bit more time. And so maybe in the next 40, 50, 60, 70 years, we get our DNA template up enough and boom, we all sail off together into the sunset to another planet or another star somewhere.
So you don't see us staying here?
I think some people will.
Mm.
Yeah, some people will. Me personally, I want to go and experience somewhere else. Yeah, I've just known since a long time that this is going to be my last incarnation on Earth.
Me too.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be here for a while. I'm 44, almost 45, and I feel like I'm going to live for a very long time. So I might be here until I'm 150 or 250. I don't know, but however long I'm here is completely cool. I'm just going to go with the flow and live day by day. But I want to take this body with me, more so for the challenge. Because once you understand that you can do that, it's like, well, I'm going to do it then. I'm not going to fail this. It's like I have to remember how to do this because this is massive.
Yeah.
It's like some kind of like running challenge or, biking challenge or whatever challenge someone sets down in front of you. Like, okay, it's a possibility. This is what I'm going to make happen.
Yeah, that all resonates with me, and there's tons of other things I could talk to you about, like flat Earth, round Earth, ayahuasca, plant medicine, etc., etc. But I'm out of time for this one. So I'm going to end on one question. What is God to you?
You, me, everything. I don't think that God is some kind of like long grey-haired old fella, up at the pearly gates that's going to condemn us to hell or send us to heaven. I think God is a frequency, and that frequency is in you, me, every sentient being on this planet. And through God's infinite intelligence, the universe, they're all just different labels for the same thing, source energy, we remember that we are cut from the very same cloth, that you're not Mark from Ireland and I'm Jerry from Wales. Like we're beyond that, like they're just physical elements of this source frequency manifested into physical form and having different experiences. You're the same stuff as me having an experience as Mark, and I'm the same stuff as you having the experience as Jerry. And we get to look into each other's eyes and see that divine light within each other and recognize it's just energy. And God is that frequency, it is that energy. And we whenever we do our group healings or we're doing anything, like we're saying to everyone, be the frequency, like melt into your heart, grow your heart, go beyond your body and your mind and be the frequency. Because when you be the frequency, you're the frequency of love, and you merge with wholeness and you realize that everything's connected. And when you do that, you don't actually need anything. You don't want for anything because there's nothing to want for. And then by default, life just flows. So I think that's the most critical thing that anyone can do. Be God, be energy, be love, be frequency. It's all the same. So for me, it's energy, man. It's the quantum building blocks of all life. Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful way to end it. Thanks, Jerry. Great to meet you. And let's do this again sometime because there's loads more questions, but I'm just out of time today.
Thank you, brother. I'd love to chat some more.
Yeah, and I look forward to meeting you one day. Thanks for everything you're doing. Thanks for coming on. Thanks everybody for watching. Take care.